It is related, but Allah is all-wise and all-knowing, all-powerful and all-beneficent, that there was, in the tide and shore of ancient time and the passage of the age and of the moment, a king among the kings of Sassan in the isles of India and China. He was master of armies and auxiliaries, of slaves and of a great following. And he had 2 sons, one tall and the other small. Both were heroic horsemen, but the taller was the greater in this exercise and reigned over lands and governed with justice among men, so that the peoples of the land and of the kingdom loved him. His name was King Shahryar. The smaller brother was called King Shahzaman and ruled over Samarkand al-Ajam. Both lived in their countries and were just rulers of the people for a space of 20 years, by the end of which time each was at the height of his splendor and his growth. This was the way with them until the tall king was seized by a violent longing to see his brother. Then he commanded his wazir to depart and return with him. And the wazir answered, "I hear and I obey." The wazir set out and, arriving in all security by the grace of Allah, entered the presence of the brother, wished him peace, and told him the purpose of his journey. King Shahzaman answered, "I hear and I obey." Then he made preparations for his departure, and for the going out of his tents, his camels and mules, his slaves and fighting men. Lastly, he raised his own wazir to the governorship, and departed to seek the lands of his brother. But, in the middle of the night, he recalled a thing which he had left forgotten at the palace. Returning and entering, he found his wife stretched on her bed and being embraced by a black slave. At this sight, the world darkened before his face, and he said within his soul, "If such a thing has come to pass when I have hardly left the city, what would the conduct of this wanton be if I were absent for long at my brother's house?" So he drew his sword, and with one stroke killed them upon the carpets of the bed. Then he returned and, ordering his camp to move forward, journeyed through the night till he came to his brother's city. His brother rejoiced at his approach, went out to meet him and greeting him, wished him peace. Also he adorned the city for him, and began to speak with him jovially. But King Shahzaman remembered the affair of his wife, and a cloud of grief veiled him. His cheeks became sallow and his body frail. King Shahryar, seeing him in this pass and thinking it was due to his exile from lands and kingdom, questioned him no further on the subject and let him be. But on a later day he said, "My brother, I know not, and yet I see your body grow frail and your cheeks sallow." Shahzaman answered, "My brother, I am stricken in the heart of my heart." But he did not reveal what he had seen happen to his wife. So King Shahryar continued, "Then come hunting and coursing with me, for in that pursuit perhaps your breast may throw off this trouble." But King Shahzaman had no wish to do so, and his brother went out to hunt alone. Now there were in the king's palace certain windows that looked onto the garden, And as King Shahzaman leaned there and looked out, the door of the palace opened, and 20 women slaves with 20 men slaves came from it. And the wife of the king, his brother, was among them and walked there in all her bright beauty. When they came to the pool of a fountain, they all undressed and mingled one with another. Suddenly, on the king's wife crying, "O Masood, Ya Masood," a gigantic Negro ran towards her, embraced her, and turning her upon her back, enjoyed her. At this signal, all the other men slaves did the same with the women, and they continued thus a long while, not ceasing their kisses and embraces and goings in and the like, until the approach of dawn. At this sight, the king's brother said within himself, "By Allah, mine is even a lighter misfortune than his." So he let his grief and his content sleep from him, saying to himself, "Truly, this is more terrible than all which happened to me." And from that moment, he began to drink again and to eat without pause. Meanwhile, the king, his brother, came back from hunting, and the two wished each other peace. Then King Shahryar, observing his brother Shahzaman, saw that color and life had come back to him, and further that he, who had so long dealt sparingly with his food, now ate abundantly. So in his astonishment, he asked him the explanation of this. And the other answered, "Listen, and I will tell you the cause of my former pallor. When you sent your wazir to me to require my presence at your side, I made my preparation for departure and left my city. But afterwards, remembering the present which I destined for you, and which I gave you at the palace, I went back and found my wife laying with a black slave, the two sleeping upon the carpets of my bed. I killed a pair of them, and made my way to you, thrice wretched in my thought for what had happened. That was the cause of my former paleness and loss of strength. As for the return of color to my cheeks, spare me, I pray, from speaking of it." When his brother heard these words, he said, "By Allah, I conjure you to tell me the other half of the matter." So King Shahzaman told him all he had seen, and King Shahryar exclaimed, "First must I see this with my own eyes." To this his brother answered, "Make it appear then that you are going out to hunt and course, but hide instead with me, and you shall be witness of the sight and see the truth of it." Immediately the king proclaimed his departure by the public crier, and the soldiers went out beyond the city with their tents. The king went forth also, and, settling himself in his tents, said to his young slaves, "Let no one enter." Then he disguised himself, and, living secretly, went towards the palace where his brother was. On his arrival, he stationed himself at the window giving on to the garden. Scarcely had an hour passed, when the women slaves, circling about their mistress, came into the garden with the men slaves. And they did all that Shahzaman had told of them, and passed the time in these diversions until Asr, the beginning of the sun's decline. When King Shahryar saw these things, reason fled from her seat in his mind, And he said to his brother Shahzaman, "Let us go hence and fare forth to seek our destiny upon the road of Allah. For we have no right in royalty, nor shall have, until we have found someone who has made a fate like ours. Without that, in truth, death would be better than our lives."